Chapter 27 All Souls Day. Mikey had gotten away, and although Mary accepted that the monster known as the McGill deserved the mob's wrath, she was secretly relieved that her brother was not sent back to the center of the earth. Whatever had happened to make him such a monster, she would never know. But now the monster was gone, at least on the outside. What Mikey made of himself now would be entirely up to him. The crowd had returned from their fruitless chase of her brother and now looked to her for guidance. Beside her, Nick surveyed the sheer mass of the crowd. There didn't seem to be this many when we were hanging upside down. Mary looked at the airship. It was only designed to carry about 100 passengers. It would be crowded, but it could be done. The passenger compartment was only a small portion of the ship. Most of it was catwalks and girders, holding the massive hydrogen bladder that gave the airship lift. There was room up inside for 1,000 afterlights, and Speedo assured her that weight wouldn't be a problem since, technically, afterlights had no actual weight, only the memory of it. Memory enough to sink the unweary to the center of the earth, but not enough to ground an airship determined to fly. "What time is it?" asked a boy who looked curiously like a shark. "Time to go home," she told him. Then she called out to the crowd. "Listen to me, everyone. We have much to do. I know some of you have been imprisoned for a very long time, but now you are free, and I have a wonderful place for you. There's room for everyone, and you'll never have to suffer again." "Are you the Sky Witch?" asked the small girl, no older than 5. Mary smiled and knelt down to hug her. "Of course not," she said. "There's no such thing." "All right," said Nick. "Let's form a single line right here, and line up by the number on your chest, so we know we're not missing anyone." The kids began to rearrange themselves like it was a game. "No pushing, there's room for everyone." Mary smiled. She and Nick were a team now. She could get used to this. "Hey," someone called. "Look what I got." They both turned to see Leaf struggling with a heavy bucket. While the others went off chasing Mikey, Leaf had gone back on board the Sulphur Queen. "The McGill left his safe open. I got the McGill's treasure." Mary took the bucket from Leaf. It was full of old, faceless coins. "Some treasure," mumbled Nick. "It's a wonderful treasure," Mary said, and gave Nick a wink. "There's enough here for everyone to get a wish at the fountain." A few kids tried to look inside, but Mary held the bucket away from them. They returned to the job at hand. The kids were still rearranging themselves into a line, trying to read their numbers, which were all written upside down. Some kids stood back, not getting in line, not certain if they should, and so those were the kids Mary went to. She handed Nick the bucket. "Hold this," she said. "Make sure you keep it away from them until we're at the fountain." Then she went off to talk to the kids who were reluctant to get in line. In the end, with Mary's kindness and charm, there wasn't a single afterlight who didn't want to come. So concerned was Mary with making sure that every afterlight was accounted for that there was one she forgot. It wasn't until they were airborne and gently gliding north, thousands of feet above the shoreline, that Mary realized it. "Where's Very?" She turned to Nick, who just shrugged. "I haven't seen him at all." Mary searched the airship, the cabins, corridors, and the catwalks up in the ship's infrastructure. Very was nowhere on board. Somehow, they had left him behind. In spite of 146 years in Everlost, some things about a small boy never change. A penchant toward moodiness, a limited attention span, and, of course, curiosity. While Mary had loaded 1,000 souls aboard the airship, Very had boarded the deserted Sulphur Queen, along with Leaf. While Leaf might have been satisfied with the bucket of coins, Bari explored deeper until he found the treasure holds. The moment he saw them, Very was in heaven, and he lost himself in the search and discovery of it all. Toys and jewels and things he couldn't identify. It was a wonderland of riches and mysteries. By the time he emerged back on the deck with as much booty as his small arms could carry, the great Zeppelin was gone, and his worst nightmare had finally come true. Mary had forgotten him. He dropped his plunder to the deck with a clatter. "Who are you?" Very spun at the sound of the voice. "Who are you, and why didn't you leave with the others?" It was a tall boy with a crooked smile and a head that was just a little too small for his body. Although Very was on the verge of tears, he sucked in his emotions, determined to show no weakness to this single straggler from the monster's crew. "Maybe I didn't want to go," said Very. Although Very couldn't be sure, the small-headed boy seemed somewhat abandoned himself. "This is a good ship," Very said. "I like all the stuff below." "It served us for 20 years, the boy said, and then he introduced himself as Pinhead. Very could have laughed, but he didn't. The name fit, as did all names in Everlost. Pinhead was waiting for the crew to return, but no one had. Very suspected no one would. Very looked out to the steel pier to the right and the steeplechase pier to the left. He supposed he could make a home for himself on these piers, but then he spotted a huge jewel-covered chair sitting on a platform on the open deck of the Sulphur Queen. The chair was both beautiful and ugly. Very found himself drawn to it. "What is that?" "The McGill's throne," Pinhead answered. Very got closer. It was, in its own strange and horrible way, very impressive. Very climbed into it and sat down. He was so small he practically disappeared into it, and yet it made him feel big. It made him feel larger than life, larger than death, larger than anything. Pinhead looked at him for a long time, as if preparing to snap a picture with his eyes. "You never told me your name," Pinhead said. "My name is But he cut himself short. Mary had left him, which meant he no longer had to be her obedient servant. He could be anyone he wanted, anything he wanted. Very leaned back in the throne and stretched out his hands, caressing the jewels on the armrests. "I am the McGill," Very said. "Hear my name and tremble." Pinhead gave him a great slanted mudslide of a smile. "Very good, sir," he said. Then, with an understanding that required no words, Pinhead went to the bridge, started the engine, and manned the tiller. Together they headed east out of Atlantic City and across the ocean in search of a new crew and a violin. End of that chapter. Okay, chapter 28, Skinjacker. This jogger girl was a pain. At first, Allie thought it was going to be okay, but as soon as the girl realized what was happening to her, she started fighting back. She was much harder to control than the ferry pilot had been. "Can't you just take it easy?" Allie yelled at her in her mind. "It's not like I'm going to hurt you. I just need to borrow you a little." "Steal me, you mean?" "Stealing," said Allie, "means that I'm not giving it back." "No, stealing is taking something that doesn't belong to you without permission, and you don't have my permission." Their body limped and jerked along the Atlantic City boardwalk as the two willful spirits fought for dominance. Allie really didn't have the time or patience for this. "We could do this the easy way," said Allie, "or we could do this the hard way." But, like Allie, this girl was a fighter. "All right, then, you asked for it," said Allie. Allie forced her eyes closed and concentrated all her will on the task of usurping, possessing, controlling. Allie imagined her spirit like a hammer pounding, pounding, pounding until the jogger girl was no more than a tremor in the tips of her fingers. When she opened her eyes, her body was no longer jerking around. It was Allie's to use as she pleased, and although she didn't particularly like the idea of being a skinjacker, it was a means to an end. Allie had to admit that being in this girl's body was tempting. She was attractive and in good shape, even if she was a few years older. It would be easy to stay here and make this body home. Were Allie a different kind of person, she might have done it, but Allie's strength of will also gave her plenty of resistance to temptation. This girl was merely a vessel to transport her home, nothing more. The jogger girl was wrong. Allie was not stealing her body. She wasn't even borrowing it. She was renting it, because the girl would get paid for her trouble. Her payment would be the absolute knowledge that there was more to the universe than living eyes could see. Allie found a set of keys in her pocket, and the keychain said, "Porch." "Where's your car?" Allie asked the girl, but she was still being uncooperative, responding in a whole slew of foul thoughts. "Fine," said Allie. "I'll find it myself." Allie began searching one hotel parking structure after another, hitting the alarm button every few seconds. It took a while, but finally she heard the car alarm going off. The biggest problem now was that Allie did not know how to drive. Had she lived, she most certainly would have had her learner's permit by now, but things being what they were, when she started the Porsche, it was the first time she had ever turned a key in a car ignition. It was also a stick shift, and although Allie knew something about gears and the working of the clutch, she had no practical experience. Just pulling out of the parking lot became a nerve-wracking experience of sudden starts, stops, and loud grinding gears. My car, cried the jogger girl from deep inside. What are you doing to my car? Allie ignored her, determined to tool around side streets until she got a hang of it. Driving, however, was not as easy as she thought, and getting a hang of it was going to take much longer than Allie realized. It was past noon now, and Allie felt no closer to being capable of driving the Porsche than when she started. Allie supposed she could ditch the car and find other transportations. A bus maybe, but then all the buses from Atlantic City went to New York or Philly. None went down to Cape May. Please, said the jogger girl, much calmer now. I've heard your thoughts, and I know where you want to go. Let me have control of my arms and legs so I can drive. Distracted, Allie ran a red light and slammed on the brakes, coming to a stop right in the middle of the intersection. Angry horns blared, and cars swerved around her. Please, said the jogger girl again, before you get us both killed. Since Allie had no desire to experience death again, she relented and backed off, not entirely, but enough to let the girl control her arms and legs so she could drive. To Allie's relief, the girl didn't fight. She simply pulled the car out of the intersection and headed back to the main road that would take them out of Atlantic City. Allie relaxed, like the captain of a ship letting the first mate navigate. Thank you, she told the jogger girl. The jogger girl said nothing. All was fine until they reached the bridge that connected Atlantic City with the mainland. Halfway across the bridge, the first mate mutinied. The jogger girl launched a sudden mental offense that caught Allie completely off guard. Steal my body, will you? Invade my space? I don't think so. Then the jogger girl began to push, but she wasn't pushing down. She was pushing out. Allie felt herself being hurled out of the girl's body like a bad buffet lunch. She couldn't feel a heartbeat anymore, or air moving in and out of her lungs. She was disconnected and losing her grip. Allie fought back, hoping it wasn't too late, trying to dig her spirit in like a grappling hook, refusing to be cast off. She pulled herself back inside, and as they fought for control, the car began to swerve wildly on the bridge. They sideswiped a car to the left, bounced off of it, and headed for a guardrail above the bay. Did you see what you did? Screamed the jogger girl. What I did? Said Allie. They smashed into the guardrail, and Allie had a horrifying moment of deja vu, the sound of crashing glass and metal. She was flying forward, and she hit the windshield, and in an instant the windshield was behind her. And yet this wasn't the same as her fatal crash, for when she looked back she saw the jogger girl still in the driver's seat, behind an inflated airbag. The girl got out of the car, frightened, bruised, but very much alive. Only then did Allie realize what had happened. The crash had thrown Allie clear out of the girl's body. Now Allie was a spirit again, on the hood of the Porsche, sinking right through it. Desperately she tried to find something to grab onto, but everything here was living world. There was nothing she could grasp. She felt the heat of the engine inside her as her body passed through it, and in a second she plunged through the car, which hung out over the edge of the bridge, and then she was falling through the air. Oh no, she yelled. She didn't even feel the difference as the air became water. Only the light around her changed. She was falling just as fast, and the dimming blue light of the bay became the charcoal darkness of the earth as she hit bottom. She could feel the mud of the bay inside her, and then solid bedrock. Then the density of the earth slowed her, but not enough. Not enough. She was going down, and nothing could stop it now. Stone in her heart, stone in her gut. Soon it would get hot. Soon it would be magma, and still she would fall until years from now she would find herself trapped in the center of gravity, waiting for the end of the world. Allie was doomed. Then she felt something grab her arm. What was that? She couldn't see a thing in the solid stone darkness, but a voice, faint and muffled, said, "Hold on to me and don't let go." And then she heard, of all things, the neigh of a horse. Okay, end of chapter 28, and there's this little excerpt right there. On Everlost coins, Mary Hightower's books have only this to say. They do not sparkle, they do not shine, and they contain no precious metals. These so-called coins are nothing more than useless leaden slugs, and are best discarded along with one's pocket lint, or better yet, tossed into a fountain for good luck.